If we go to the ancient Copper Age Sumer, we find some Dionysian traits between several deities here. Ningishzida, whose name means Lord of the Good Tree, has an exact etymology match to what Pherecydes of Syros thinks Dionysus means, Diwo Nuso, God of the Tree. He was a Mesopotamian deity of vegetation, the underworld, and sometimes war. He was commonly associated with snakes, libations, and wine. Like Dumuzi, he was believed to spend a part of the year in the land of the dead. Dumuzi is also a vegetation god who, like Dionysus, descends into the underworld and returns. Ningishzida is connected with Dumuzi due to their common traits as deities of vegetation who undergo death. The god Damu seems to be a synchronization of both Ningishzida and Dumuzi. It is commonly believed that Dumuzi was brought to Lebanon and Syria by the Assyrians in the Iron Age and was called Adon and later Adonis. But his connection to Dionysus would predate that evolution. Both Dionysus and Adonis are ritually mourned over in the rites of the Syrians, Phoenicians, and at Delphi, where the mourning of Dionysus took place at the bottom of the mountain of Delphi, where his tomb was located. Initiates in the Eleusinian mysteries practice ritual mourning for Dionysus as well. We also see similar mourning rituals for Osiris, Ashmun, and Attis, all possibly setting the stage for the mourning of Jesus. Oddly enough, the Sumerians also ritually mourned over the deaths of Dumuzi and Ningishzida. Dumuzi is mourned over by Inanna, and the weeping for Dumuzi ritual was mentioned in the Hebrew Bible by Ezekiel, illustrating the widespread popularity of this rite.
Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz, Dumuzi, Ezekiel.
A lament titled In the Desert by the Early Grass mentions both deities Ningishzida and Dumuzi as subjects of mourning. This connection is further reflected in astrological text. Some lamentations even equate Ningishzida and Dumuzi as being identical entities. Given their roles as inhabitants of the underworld, there are instances where they are both related to Gilgamesh. In the Middle Babylonian narrative of Adapa, Ningishzida is depicted as one of the two guardians of Anu's heavenly abode, sharing this role with Dumuzi. This story seems to suggest that upon their death, these two deities reside in the celestial realms instead of the underworld, or that they took turns descending and ascending. It was traditionally believed that the disappearance of both Ningishzida and Dumuzi occurred annually between midsummer and midwinter. What is so interesting about this is a similar duality we see with Dionysus and Apollo. Attic calendars from the classical age of Athens depict Apollo and Dionysus as lords of the two main seasons. They believe that after harvest, Apollo would leave and go north to the lands of the Hyperboreans and perform his music, which caused the winter aurora borealis. During this time, Dionysus ruled from the underworld and brought Merry Revelry to the wintertime. Then, during the spring season, Dionysus' death and sacrifice would cause the crops to grow, and Apollo would rule from the heavens, and his light was a blessing for the entire summer until the harvest. Harvard philologist Carl A.P. Ruck puts forth that the gods Dionysus and Apollo are actually both two spirits of the same god-son character. He points out that they are never depicted in the same myths together, but also since they are both prince of Zeus and mediator between the god and humans, like the dual nature of Mithra, seen as both chthonic and solar, who's also a mediator for Ahura Mazda and Zoroaster. Dionysus is liberation from the soul from within, chthonic. Apollo is justice given down from above, heavenly. What we have in Dionysus is a god of inspiration, freedom, equality, arts, music, revelry, moisture, metamorphosis, growth of vegetation, wine, ecstasy, sex, passion, instinct, emotion, death, resurrection, salvation, eternal life. Dionysus is chthonic and dark. In the exact opposite sense, Apollo is a god of light, the sky, order, rationality, piety, justice, hierarchy, composure, sobriety, logic, purity, and most of all, prophecy and unchangeable fate. But like Dionysus, also a god of arts and music, though a different kind. Music with order. Apollo's music, the paean, is comparable to the classic orchestra. Dionysus's music, the dithyramb, is more abstract and poetic, singing that goes along with dancing and revelry. Apollo's music like classical orchestra, while Dionysus is more like gangster rap or dubstep. Apollo is the embodiment of individual responsibility. You are given your lot by above, hierarchy. Dionysus is the embodiment of collective responsibility. Slaves become free through inspiration, equality. Both gods are sons of Zeus. Dionysus is connected to the underworld and the moisture that grows the crops from below the earth, while Apollo is connected to the heavens and the light that comes down. The Athenian calendars marked half the year with Apollo, lord of the light, lightbringer, the dry, sunny, hottest 6 months, and Dionysus was marked as lord of the harvest, cold, wet, and dark seasons. Friedrich Nietzsche's Birth of Tragedy does a great comparison of these gods and the symbiotic relationship of the two, like a yin and yang, whose primordial unity between the Dionysian frenzy and Apollonian order can bring the physiological condition that enables the creation of tragedy. Life itself is a tragedy. In this state, one enriches everything out of one's own fullness. Whatever one sees, whatever one wills, is swelled, taut, strong, overloaded with strength. A man in this state transforms things until they mirror his power, until they are reflections of his perfection. This, having to transform into perfection, is art. Nietzsche, Birth of Tragedy. Nietzsche firmly believed that the creations of Pindar, Aeschylus, and Sophocles epitomize the pinnacle of artistic expression and the true embodiment of tragedy. Nietzsche disputes too much Socratic rationalism and arguing that introducing ethics and reason displaces the essence of tragedy, specifically the delicate equilibrium between the Dionysian and Apollonian elements. This emphasis on reason was perpetuated by Plato in his dialogues, leading the contemporary world to prioritize reason over the artistic energies inherent in the Apollonian and Dionysian contrast. Nietzsche also believed that Christianity, which he calls Platonism for the people, was results of Western culture falling too far from the artistic tragic world of the satyr, which had become the symbol of all that is demonic and evil, the devil or antichrist. The satyr is the horror or annihilation of the principle of individuality, and at the same time, someone who delights in its destruction. It is pure liberation and freedom of expression. We see a similar dichotomy between Osiris and Set, both sons of Ammon. Set is the god of dryness and desert, who rules over the summer, and Osiris is the chthonic underworld god of moisture, vegetation, and darkness. When we look at Egypt for Dionysus, speculation is no longer even necessary, because both Greeks and Egyptians agreed that Osiris and Dionysus are one and the same. For no gods are worshipped by all Egyptians in common, except Isis and Osiris, who they say is Dionysus. These are worshipped by all alike. Osiris is, in the Greek language, Dionysus. Herodotus, Book 2.